Gig Gab, episode 433 for Monday, June 10th, National Egg Roll Day 2024. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Gig Gab, the show by, for, and about working musicians here in Durham, New Hampshire. As usual, I am Dave Hamilton, and today I have a very special guest with a fascinating story that I actually got to experience the beginning of, or part of. I don't know if it's actually the beginning. My friend Heather Smith, here also from New Hampshire, has just put an album out, is working on another one. Heather, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us today.
Hi, Dave. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be able to fill you in on the rest of the story since we talked last.
Yeah, since we talked last, yeah,
right.
Absolutely. and I want to acknowledge the Paul Giovine. Sorry, I looked at your name quick, Paul, and I mispronounced it despite us just having this conversation. Paul Giovine. The drummer who has played on your project here and all of that. Thanks for joining as well, Paul.
Thanks for letting me join you.
Yeah, of course. So it is worth. I rarely start at the beginning with things on this show, but it is worth starting at least at what I know as the beginning, which is the day we met.
Yeah, I
talked about that day on this show about 5 years ago, because it was the first gig that I played with my friend Simon. Longtime listeners will remember that Simon is the guitar player in my old co-host's band, Paul Kent's band, the House Rockers. Simon plays guitar in that band, but he was originally from New Hampshire, and so he and I synced up, and he came out here one summer 5 years ago and said, "Hey, I'm playing this gig. I'm doing an acoustic thing. I'm super nervous about it. Would you do it with me?" I'm like, "Yeah, what do you mean you're nervous?" He's like, "Well, I've never done the solo acoustic thing before." And he has since gone on to, create the Bro Show, which is this whole thing. I've actually played gigs with him out in California too. Nice. And this gig was a party that you were throwing.
Yeah, I was being, the good mom, and both of my kids were, I had my son who was graduating from high school and my daughter that was graduating from college, and we had rented, like a cool place that can have a band, and I thought it'd be neat to have live music. And Simon and I actually went to high school together. That's how I knew him. And he had just moved out to California, and I just got in touch with him and was like, "Look, do you know anybody that might want to come and do this gig?" And he said, "I don't really, but I would totally do it if I could."
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh, okay, well, maybe that'll work out." And it did. And you were recruited for that. And
I was recruited.
Amy.
I brought some sound gear, and Amy also played. Amy and Simon had played in a band together years before. Yep.
Right.
And But something, so that was, I loved that day for all of those reasons. It was great to be able to play with Simon. It was great to see him. He was so nervous, and yet he did so well. I told him, like, you got to keep doing this. And it turns out, for once, somebody listened to my advice.
Well, twice, because one of the
Correct.
things that you told me after we'll get into it, but you also told me, he's like, you should be doing this.
Well, that's the thing, is you came on stage with us to sing, and the one thing I don't remember is what song you sang with us, but I'm sure you do. Maybe.
I don't, because I'd had like 6 vodka sodas.
Got it.
Because I had never sung in front of anyone before.
Sure.
And so I'm like, my high school friend is here, and I might be able to get up and sing, and I don't know what I'm going to do, and oh my God.
Yeah.
So I just drank myself into a tizzy, and then I got up.
We call that liquid courage. That's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Horrible stage fright. Got up on there, and I just took over for Amy because she had to leave early. So it was almost like the universe was like, this is your time.
Yeah.
So I got up there and I sang like probably 10 songs with you guys.
That's right. You sang harmonies on a bunch of stuff. I remember that now. You and I were blending harmonies together while Simon was singing. And then I think you sang lead on something.
Hallelujah. It just came back. It was Hallelujah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
you were great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was a good time. It was fun, and it was the only thing that I had ever done before that was I had a karaoke night with some of my girlfriends.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess this qualifies me to get up and sing with a band,
Yep.
So.
Yep. I think it's amazing. This is amazing. Like the fact that, and then you and we never really, we obviously performed together and said hello to each other and talked at this party, but you and I did not stay in touch.
No,
until what, a month and a half ago, maybe.
Well,
you shot me oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned it before. There was the reason that I knew about your podcast is because I guess a couple weeks after that event, Simon texted me and he goes, oh, by the way, you were discussed at length on my friend Dave's podcast. Nice. And I was like, ooh, at length. Okay. So I had to go and listen. And it was just a very nice little mention that you gave me and said, you never, the hostess of the party wants to get up and sing, you kind of let her sing. And I think you had said she was actually good.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's I don't remember what I said.
Yeah.
Because it was 5 years ago, but I do remember the surprise of, oh, this isn't awful. We don't need to find an exit for her. This. Right. You were great. Yeah.
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 Well, thank you. Thank you.
And then, whatever, 6 or 8 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. You wind up in my inbox to tell me about this album you've released, and this blew my mind because the last I knew, you were not comfortable on stage at all. And here you are releasing an album. And have you been playing out with the album and all of that too, right?
We haven't actually gigged this yet. So It just came out. It just came out a little over a month ago. I actually released it on my birthday as a gift to myself.
Amazing.
We sorry, you might have to cut this out. What did you say just before that? I lost my train of thought.
We haven't gigged it out yet.
No, correct. Okay, we haven't gigged it out yet.
Some shows.
There are plans to do that, especially because I have a few other things in the works. But I just started out after we had that time together. I ended up just calling a random band or emailing a random band on Craigslist and asked
a bass player.
Is that right? That's how you met? You emailed a random band because Paul, your band needed a bass player? And I had
actually quit the band already. I came back. But yeah.
He had quit the band. So I'm on Craigslist and I just see this ad for a country band that was looking for a bass player. And so I responded and I was like, well, I'm not a bass player. However, I would love to sing backup in your band. And the band leader was like, okay. And so so I didn't get paid for it, but it was okay. That was kind of our deal. I was like, I don't even need to get paid. I just want to get up there and sing, And he said, okay. And you had quit that band. And so the first couple gigs I did with them was with a totally different drummer.
Yeah.
And I just started singing backup,
Amazing.
And,
all cover stuff.
All cover stuff,
of course.
And eventually they let me do a few leads, and that was fun. And then actually this is kind of where our own band comes into play, because after, I don't know, what was it, a year of me being in the band, the other cover band,
first time we ever got together, the singer was late, so Heather ended up doing a couple of her songs with the band, and a couple of us afterwards were like, oh yeah, we could probably just grab Heather.
And that's when the person that ran that bar said,
Right. So then we actually did a gig where the main lead singer was late and said, "Hey, can you guys do 5 or 6 songs before we get there?"
Sure.
Before I get there. So we went up and Heather did 5 or 6 songs before he showed up. And then at the end of the night, the owner came up to her and said, "Hey, do you guys want to book you?" So we were like, "Well, let's learn 2 more sets."
I was like, okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I have had that happen. Be careful, folks, or be aware. No,
Be very careful.
This reminds me of, I was in it when I first moved here to New Hampshire, whatever, 18 years ago. 19 years ago now, almost exactly to the day. Anyway, I joined this 4-piece female-fronted classic rock cover band, and we did a bunch of gigs together. And then there was one gig where she had actually gone off with I think the club owner or something, but the manager was still there, and we had to do a set without her.
Ooh.
And she was just gone.
Yeah.
And I forget who she was off with. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. But so we did an entire set without her. And the manager of the bar was like, "Hey, would you guys ever just be interested in coming here without her?" And I was like, "Well, that gets a little dicey,
It's a little tricky.
Yeah.
Right.
But that actually wound up becoming a trio that I played with for a long time, and then it fizzled out. But later this month, 10 years later now, I have a gig with basically that trio again. So
that's cool.
Yeah. Just,
That's
how
awesome.
things work out.
That's how it works out.
Yeah. But be careful if you show up late or you don't show up.
Well, that's what I was just going to say, because an opportunity will present itself, and you don't always you don't always want to have your sub in there get better than you are,
I've always said I don't like, if I have to sub out a gig, I want someone in there that is better than me so that so that the band doesn't have to suffer for the night.
Right.
Yep.
However,
yes. Not that much better.
Right.
Not that much better. That's right. And definitely not available for anything else.
Nope.
That's right.
Busy guy. It's a busy guy.
busy drummer. That's right.
That's funny. Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
So I learned. So so that was
Yeah.
about, so we did our first gig as
Glitter and Camo.
Glitter and Camo, which was our cover band that we started on in December of 2022.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was when I started as a band leader. And we went through 5 different guitarists, 2 different bass players, a couple fiddle players, few fiddle players. Yeah. And so the 2 of us are really the only constant.
Yep.
And we ended up meeting an amazing fiddle player through Glitter and Camo that ended up playing on the record too. Her name is Annie McDougall, and she's just fantastic. And we're so lucky and that she was available to and willing to work on our project with us.
And so Glitter and Camo was a cover band when it started. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a band we started.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Ah, all right.
So
very cool.
It kind of is all is sort of entwined in the story a little bit.
Yeah. I would say more than a little bit. Like that's the evolution here. Okay.
Yeah.
So then with the album, it was one of those things where, I was going through a hard time personally, really since COVID. I was like trying to figure out how to be happy and what I needed to do, what changes I needed to make and everything. And music was really one of those things that I said, you know what, like, I don't care. I'm 51 years old. And it's time to do this, because this is something that I visualized in my head since I was a kid. I started writing songs when I was 6. I have songs that I wrote when I was 6. And it was just a part of me and a part of my life forever. And for whatever reason, I spent the good part of my adult life like talking myself out of it, thinking nothing I could ever write would be good enough, or nothing I could do would ever be popular, or I'm not, I hate the way my voice sounds. I hate this and that. And
we all do, by the way.
It's right. And I just finally realized,
I don't mean we all hate the way your voice sounds. I love the way your voice sounds. Just for clarity, we all hate the way our own voices sound. Yeah.
Right. And it was just, and I didn't really have any experience singing in front of anyone. So I was just my own judge of myself. And I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? I just, for whatever reason, I'm feeling that the calling to do this now. And everything kind of aligned in just the right way. And last summer, it was about June. So it was about exactly 1 year ago, I started writing songs again for the first time since I was like 19 or 20.
Wow.
That album, well, this is a good story, actually. It wasn't originally going to be an album. We were going to
What were we going to do?
We were going to record a few covers.
Yeah, we're going to do an EP.
Oh, this is
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Paul's like, why don't we try an EP? You've always wanted to record something.
Let's do an EP. So I was thinking like 3 originals, 2 covers, some fun in the studio.
Yep.
Start working. So
That's smart. It sets it keeps the pressure lower.
Yeah. Well, that was my thinking too. But she looked up EP as, extended play and said, well, it must be longer than an LP. So after a few weeks, I'm like, I thought you were going to write a couple songs with her. She goes, I've got 14 right now. And I'm like, what? I'm like, we're only doing an EP. And she goes, yeah.
Well, an EP is the extended version of the regular.
LP, and I had it. So
I think it's extended from a 45, right? Is that right? Though
Call
is that
it
like
extended if it's not extra long?
We did the longest extended play ever.
So this was my mistake. This is my error.
So we said, hey.
But like the term, we all use the term EP. Even people generations younger than me use the term EP. But I don't think they know where it comes from because you're right. Like it does mean extended play, but it's
and
extended
being an
play.
80s kid, it's just like that's what I'm remembering.
Yeah, but
like,
extended play from a 45, which is 2 songs, is different from
the front and the back, right?
From a 10-song, 12-song LP.
Totally.
Yeah, we need to. It's weird that we talk about EPs.
So leave it to like a newbie to point out these weird things that don't make sense, and you guys all gotta accept it.
That makes sense. You couldn't really. What could you say? I said, all right, that makes sense.
So I'm like, okay, so here are the songs, and that was in.
What we're gonna do?
That was in
They're
June.
All good. So we said, all right.
Yeah, June 2023 is when I wrote the songs, and starting in June 2023, and then we went into the studio to record them. Our basic session was in November 2023, and then we released April of 2024.
Amazing.
So it was just all of a sudden, I figured out that like this is a very fulfilling thing to do, and it feels right. And I don't know how I didn't allow this into my life for as long as I did, because it's been a part of me forever, and I just overlooked it, and for weird reasons. And I'm just very thankful that I'm here now. So
I'm thankful you're here now too. Your songs are amazing. I love the songs. I love the way they sound. You've done a great job with all. It does not sound like a first album by any stretch. And I realize, that Paul, you and others have been involved to sort of help make sure it doesn't sound like a first album. But the songwriting, I mean, it also doesn't. It doesn't surprise me that you've been writing, to find out that you've been writing songs since you were in your teens, because clearly you threw out a lot of things to get to the point where you could write these kinds of songs now. These don't feel like a first effort at songwriting.
It was Hey There.
Well, yeah, so that's
first song on the album.
The first song on the album was one I resurrected that I wrote when I was a teenager.
There you go.
So I was like, you know what? This feels like the bridge. Like if I can put out a song that I wrote when I was like 18, 19 years old, and people like it and it sounds like an actual song, like why not use it?
Yeah.
It's kind of neat.
Well, I mean, the stuff you write, when you first get started, not all of it is bad, just most of it, right? So, but being able to go back and mine those things and even sometimes tweak them and say, hey, I've learned a lot since I first wrote this, but let me apply some of that wisdom to this thing that was a good seed of an idea to begin with. That you said something. You said something earlier about, spending a lot of energy convincing yourself not to do this. And like that's true of all of us in so many aspects of our lives in general, but especially when it comes to creative outlets. It's so easy for us to say, well, not yet, not now, not me, not today. And eventually you have to pick that it is today, right? I always say whenever I figure something out or do something, it's like, my first thought is, oh my God, I should have done this years ago. The second thing I tell myself is, if that was if 10 years ago was the best time to do it, today is the second best time to do it.
Absolutely.
And you just got to give yourself permission to do that. And
there's never going to be a good time ever.
Well,
And
if you're new to it, of course it's going to feel awkward.
Yep.
If it doesn't, that's weird. So just, you let yourself go feel awkward. And the studio is a nice place to do it because you have the ability to do it again without anybody hearing it on stage. But you also need to just get on stage too, eventually.
Right. Yes, for sure. I mean, that was the greatest thing about being in the cover bands is like, I had stage fright. And that's a big part of what kept me from doing this is like, well, I can't possibly do this because I can barely talk in front of, I could never have done something like this. But it's what ended up happening is I just took these little tiny steps, like these little manageable steps, and just dealt with the uncomfortable feelings. And then I realized the next time I did it, I'm actually okay with that part. So I'm going to take another little tiny step. And when I felt okay with that, I kept going. And it's changed my life to not be so worried about perfection and worried about what other people are thinking of you. And it's so freeing to just be your authentic self and be like, hey, if you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm not for everybody,
It's never anything we do. It's never going to be perfect. There might be something that accidentally is perfect, right? Like it can happen, but it rarely happens. And also, even if it is, it's not going to appeal to everyone. That's the beauty, especially with music, right? That's the beauty of music.
It's art. It's art. I mean, it's just a self-expression is what that is. And just like any art is, you'll have people that identify and people that pull their own meaning from it. And the second song that I wrote on the album is called "The You Never Got to Be," and that one came to me one night. Just that whole phrase. And I thought to myself, all right, that's a song that I want to write. I want to talk about how my experience with this has taught me that it is never too late to do what pulls at you. It is never too late to make a change and to, go in the right direction. And I will say that once I started including music in my life again, so many other things got better for me. It's just amazing. Everything around me just started to get better because my outlook changed. It was like, I'm fulfilling my thing, and it's just huge. It feels so good.
Yep. I 2 weeks ago, I put out an episode talking about how I realized I didn't really play any gigs between New Year's Eve and the beginning of May. And it wasn't an intentional thing. Several bands that I was in sort of didn't quite make it after COVID, even though we hadn't quite accepted that yet. And so there were some fits and starts, and suddenly they all sort of wrapped up. And I have one other band, Bitter Pill, that I still play with that does fine. But we basically only play in the summer. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and I only dealt with it for 5 months. So, yeah.
But it's almost like once you open your eyes to the possibilities, then you can't unsee it. No. So the coolest thing about this is I'm at an age and a point in my life where I'm not trying to do anything. I'm not trying to get rich or that's like what you think about when you're 15 years old and you're like, oh, I want to be on stage and I want to sell out
you don't want to make it.
You know what I mean? It's just, you have to get to a certain point where you're like, oh my gosh, it's the journey. It's just the doing. It's the doing. And I don't know if I would have understood that when I was younger. So I really feel like I'm in a better place,
I have been playing since I was 15, playing live, and
Same. You guys both started at 15 years old gigging.
But you don't looking back on it, I took so much for granted. When I was in college, I was in a band called Go Figure, an original band out of sort of Connecticut in general. And we did really well. Like, we started playing some gigs, and in our college years, we were playing for 500 to 1,000 people at times, and we played some pretty big shows, and we just took it all for granted because it was like, well, this is what happens. You start a band, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then that's how it works. Of course, that's how it works.
Yeah,
exactly. Like suspended adolescence. Here we come. Right.
Why doesn't everybody do this?
Yeah. This is easy. Right. And then of course the band fell apart because people couldn't. We all found that we were evolving to different pages of what we wanted to live as our lives, and there were creative differences, and it imploded and burst into flames. And then which is what happens
all the time.
All the time, correct. And then maybe 20 years later, I was involved in a project. It was actually an earlier incarnation of this Bitter Pill thing, and it started to heat up again. And the guitar player in it is also my age, and he was also in a band at the same time. In fact, we realized we played one gig together. But we had no idea. We were in a band together here in New Hampshire for 5 years before it came up. It was like, wait a minute, you were at that Battle of the Bands? So was I.
So funny.
Yeah. But we both said to each other, like, this is happening again. You're lucky if it even happens once in your life, let alone twice. But this time, I'm going to enjoy every moment because I also know it's not going to last forever, but it's hard to do that. You wouldn't, without enough life experience, you just take it for granted. You just think it's normal. That's how it is. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's what you've said is what I have going for me is that, like, I don't know what it's supposed to be like. So
Yeah.
I'm good with everything. I'm good with whatever.
I've played in a bunch of the original bands back in the 90s and early 2000s, pursuit of making it. That's why
yes,
I was
of course.
making fun of that. We're like, whatever that meant.
Whatever, now I actually,
means.
There's a whole different definition. It's basically you start a band first, then you start a business,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
And that's usually where it falls apart. But
that's when it all fell apart for most of them, So I was like, but then, so I was serious about Heather's thing about the album, but I'm not thinking it's going to do anything. And I keep telling her, this might be the most successful project I've ever played on.
Yeah.
As I start looking back at some of these, clown shows that you stick around with for a few years, as some singer-songwriter tells you how fast they want the song to be or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, that story. Oh, that's a good drum. Okay, the drummer story.
Hit this cymbal, not that cymbal. Don't worry
what
about
I like is the hand behind the singer's back. With the
up,
thumb
down,
up or down.
Speed up, down, speed up, down.
Oh, the whole thing about cueing, leading a band, like stepping on stage the year before, and then gonna lead a band, and I do these like wild motions with my arms.
Guess when the end is coming.
Yeah.
It's been a humorous ride, watching me figure all this stuff out. But
Yep. And every band leader is different. There's no one way to do it. And I've had bands where the same signal means two different things. I've had the hand, the finger next to the head circling.
Like, one more time around.
That's what it means in some bands, and in other bands, last time. And it's like, there was one band I was in. I kept going, and the guy was like, "I gave you the signal." I'm like, well, to me, that signal meant do not stop.
Keep it going.
That's a keep it going right there. That's
to the three of us, it is. Yep. Yeah.
Well, I can still remember my first successful cue where we were working on an end of the song, and I went like this. I put my hands up like this to you to say 2 more times around.
We did it.
You were so proud of me. You're like,
that's great.
God, it's understood. Yes.
Yep.
I'm so happy.
Yep. That's great. But you figure these things out. Like it's how it works.
You do.
Yep.
You do. The only way to figure it out is just to do it and be screamed at and
Yes.
be embarrassed and
Yes.
horrified and all of that.
And have a minor train wreck on stage, and that's we learn from pain, right?
That's
So-
right.
Oh, yeah.
it's like what do you
Usually
say?
won't happen again.
One show is worth how many rehearsals? Like
10 rehearsals.
Right.
At least.
One gig is 10 rehearsals,
Yeah.
right? 'Cause if
Absolutely.
You screw something up, you're not going to do it.
You're never
going
gonna
to
do it again.
You're never going to screw
No.
it up again.
Not that. No.
Not that
no.
one.
Not in
no,
that
no,
way.
no.
Screw up, but not that.
Not that way. That's right.
Although
Although
you'll find one.
I have learned, and this is definitely not something that you learn early on, because every mistake I would like obsess about and all of that. What I have learned is if a mistake happens once, you don't talk about it. You just let it happen. If it didn't happen in rehearsal, it happened at the gig. There was a weird error, whatever. Somebody got distracted, whatever.
Yep.
If it happens a second time, then it's worth talking about. But if you spend too much energy talking about the one-off mistakes, they will happen again because
Yeah.
you get in your head about it.
and over
It's
again.
like-
It's
Yeah.
the law of attraction. I'm telling you right
Correct.
now, that's what it is. And that's
Yes.
the whole thing about this whole thing is I'm like, geez, if I'm telling myself over and over that I can't do it and I'm not good enough and I'm never going to be able to do it,
You're
you
right.
think I'm ever going to do it?
Yeah.
Right.
No. So you got to change your thinking if you want to do something like that, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. God, this is so amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sad that I didn't know about Glitter and Camo, because I would have come to have seen you. But
Oh,
I'm also glad that I didn't know about it, because I got to just dive in at, farther down the path here and just be blown away by the evolution. That's awesome.
from 5 years, you know?
Yeah.
We had talked about wrapping up Glitter at the end of this year anyway,
Right.
because doing the original stuff's way more probably what we both want to be doing right now.
Sure,
and whatever.
Sure.
And then our bass player, I don't know, kind of bailed on a bunch of gigs that we had kind of confirmed.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
we-
he had stuff going on.
He
There's
had
no hard
Of
stuff
course.
feelings or
going
anything
on.
like
Yeah,
that.
no, it
love the guy.
happens.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. We love the guy, but it was getting, it's like, geez, do we want to, it was hard enough finding a guitar player.
We had been
now
through
that
so many guitar players, and
do
I
an
was like, you know
audition.
what?
Right. All these guys for more. So we said, you know what, let's just wrap
The
it up
originals
now.
are going so well, and like
You can
we wanna
always
have to
rekindle
find
it.
Yeah,
right,
you can always
right.
get it going.
Well, and the cool thing, what I kept wanting to try to do, that I found challenging about being with Glitter, is that I like cool stuff. Like I want to be singing cool stuff, and like and that's not really what the audience wants. They want I love rock and roll, and they want
You
that's
don't
what they
like
want,
rock and roll.
and I don't like the rock and
You
roll.
don't like it on rock and roll.
So anyway,
Like,
it's
even
like
Redneck Woman's starting to get a little,
right,
some of these.
yeah, all those songs, tired old country songs. But the cool thing
Mustang
is once
sound
we
is
start gigging with the originals, I can throw in some covers like my
Of course.
way, and like
The cool ones.
Yeah, the
Yep.
cool
Well,
ones, the ones that
Glitter
because
one's doing
people
some
are
cool ones,
expecting an original show. They're not expecting to go and hear the song that they love exactly the way they love it because they're cutting loose on a Friday night or whatever.
Right.
It's interesting. When you play in a cover band that is built to be a cover band, right? You are basically forced at some level, like you're saying, to play the songs that the audience is expecting to hear when they leave their house, right? And certainly over time, if you attract a following that's coming to every gig, you can train them to know songs that are a little off the beaten path. But certainly at the beginning, you have the fake book, either the rock and roll fake book or the country fake book or the jazz fake book, whatever it is. That's kind of your, here in New England, we call them the GB songs, right? The general business songs.
General business. Yeah.
You got to play those. And then your vanity songs, you get, one or two a night, are either some obscure cover that you love, that you want to play, or an original, right? Like that's what you get to do.
That's where you get your jollies,
That's where you get your jollies. But then you flip the script, right? When you start an original band and everybody's expecting to hear your songs and they either have heard them from you before or not. And then the covers that you throw in, to me, those become the vanity songs. And it could be a Mustang Sally. Most people probably aren't going to pick that as their vanity song, but but you
could do it in a way that if you were doing an
That's-
original thing, you could do it in a way that's like surprising and unexpected.
Cool.
Correct.
And cool.
It
Yeah.
might be cool to do that in an original project.
It would be.
100%. We're not doing
Write that
Mustang
down.
Sally. We're not doing Mustang Sally.
We're just doing it.
Don't even.
But like that's the fun part is you get, I always think, even if it's a popular song, you're showing the audience, hey, this is my vanity song for the night. Like, I'm playing all of my originals, and then we have chosen this cover, and it lets the audience see a little bit inside your head. Like, hey, you like that song? I like that song too. Right. And it creates that connection. And that's the part I love about throwing covers into an original band. Yeah.
And it like freshens their ears too, because they hear something familiar and like, and it just keeps them feeling good. And it's good.
It is good. Yeah.
But yeah, we've got
a little list. We have a little
cover list going. We do.
Yep. Of course.
Yeah, we do. We have a little list. And then
in the show.
We've got we're working on second one right now. We're going to go in for basics on the second one in September. We have a yes from everyone to come back and join us.
Great.
So that's pretty exciting. And I've got 2 more demoed. So 2 more albums demoed.
Wow.
Extended
apparently,
EPs.
it's like, I don't know.
More EPs coming.
I'm telling you, I've just found that it's like, it's like I'm making up for lost time. I've got all this stuff inside me that I need to get out.
Yep.
So.
And my guess is that the stuff that's there is at least as good as what you've put together already. Otherwise, Paul wouldn't be as excited, and he'd be trying to convince me to play on these records. So.
Well, we might call you in for some percussion.
There you go. Sure, I'd love it. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? That's fine with me. I'd love it.
That'd be fun. Oh, it would be an honor.
Absolutely. How cool would that be? Yeah.
Or I'll sing some harmonies on your record instead.
Yes,
right?
You have a great voice. Yes.
Way better than me trying to do that.
Oh my gosh, 100%, Dave. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That would be such an honor. Yeah, absolutely.
Bunch of friends on the last one.
Yeah, for sure.
The more the merrier.
Yep.
Cool.
The merrier.
Cool. Oh, that's amazing. I'm so stoked. All right, so do you have any gigs booked that you'd want to tell people about yet, or at least tell people where to find you and that sort of thing?
Yes, I can do that. My goal is to start gigging this at the latest by next year.
Okay. Yep.
So at the latest. I'm really excited to get back in the studio, and you can follow that progress. I am Gen X, and we are all on Facebook, so that's where all my stuff is. It's all on Facebook. So it's Heather Smith Music 1 is the.
All right, I'll put a link in the show notes so everybody can find it. Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
But there's nothing booked right now. We're starting to sniff out venues.
Right, we are. We're looking for venues
who might.
And
maybe bands to kind of pair up with that would be good at what we're doing.
We were thinking of collaborating with somebody local that maybe has a similar, kind of style or genre, and see if they want to do, a collaborative set.
Like the old school, maybe, you rent out the venue with another band. You bring it.
You four-wall the event.
Yeah,
that's we call it four-walling here on Gig Gab. I mean, we didn't come up with the term, but Yep.
So it's full speed ahead on both live and recording. So I'm just, every step of the way has been so exciting that I told Paul this. I'm like, it just feels like frosting. I mean, I released an album. That's something I never thought I would be able to do, and here it is. And it's
I'll brag for a minute. Over 12,000 streams. On YouTube, Apple, Spotify.
Just those three. Just
Wow.
a little over a month. Yeah.
Whoa.
12,000. Yep.
So I was excited. If you add them all up, it seems
of course
pretty popular on
as you
Spotify.
should. Yeah. Don't sandbag.
I know. Here I am going to make all the excuses why you should not stream my album. Don't do it.
Yeah, no. I'll put links to. Okay, so I'll put your Facebook link here, but I'll also put links to you on Apple Music and Spotify and YouTube too. So,
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for reaching out. I am so happy to hear your story. I'm happy to share your story on the show. And I have to thank you because there's something that you probably, I guess you could know this if you did a lot of research, but it would require more than I would expect anyone to do, is that you are the first woman that we have ever had on Gig Gab, believe it or not. Paul and I talked about it for years. Not you, Paul, my former co-host. And we rarely had guests for the first 9 years, but for the last 5.5 months, I've been doing this without my original co-host. His schedule changed such that he couldn't do the show. I wanted to continue. He's come back on, actually once, but he's coming again. And but so I've been evolving the show, and we always talked about getting a woman on the show, and it just never happened. Ta-da! And so thank you. Like, this is perfect to me.
Pick the good one. You pick the good one.
I agree.
I'm gonna. Is it okay if I share that I have that honor of being the first female?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you too, because I actually do. I have these moments in my life that I can remember where people sort of like tip the scales for me a little bit, and you are one of them.
Amazing.
The way that you spoke about me both then and on the podcast gave me that little boost to take that next step. So you never know how you can affect somebody by a positive word or just standing behind them or just supporting them. It can change everything. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you for saying that. That actually, that warms my heart. So thank you. Yeah. All right.
Group hug. Sorry.
Woo! Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're not all in the same room. Yeah.
Right. No.
We'll see you in the studio.
We'll definitely, we'll do some stuff together. That'll be
love
fun.
It. I think that'll be great, and we'll let everybody know about it. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time, both of you, Heather and Paul. This has been amazing. Thanks for hanging out. Folks, make sure to check everything out, giggabpodcast.com. Sign up for our mailing list, too, so that you get all the show notes. And as we always like to say on the show here, always be performing. And we'll see you next week. Thank you both. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dave.
See ya.
Thanks so much.
Perfect.